That's my secret, cat. I'm always angry.
Alright. I ran out of patience. On the roost!
Hey everyone, Captain, big fan of Spider-Man.
Avengers! Assemble.
Hello, Peter.
Hello and welcome back to the Infinity Saga and Beyond an MCU Fan podcast. Today, we're not talking the MCU, we're talking Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. I just saw it on Tuesday. I know usually I try to go opening weekend, but my family wanted to all see it together. We went and saw it on Tuesday. It was hard to not go before that, but we're talking Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, which was originally called Across the Spider-Verse Part 1. That's going to come up probably. It released June 2nd in the United States. It is written by Phil Lord, Christopher Miller, Dave Callahan, directed by Joaquim Dos Santos, Kemp Powers, and Justin K. Thompson. And it stars Shamik Moore, Haley Steinfeld, Brian Tyree Henry, Jake Johnson, Jason Schwartzman, Issa Rae, Daniel Kaluuya, Mahershala Ali, Oscar Isaac, just a bunch of names is who it stars. It opened up its opening weekend so much bigger than Spider-Verse into the Spider-Verse, as this movie has been a juggernaut in its first bit here. But we're going to talk about it. This is spoiler filled, so if you do not want to hear any spoilers on Across the Spider-Verse, now would be the time to back out and move on. But yeah, so I saw this on Tuesday. The hype was real. I mean, people were hyping this thing up insanely. I'm a big fan of Into the Spider-Verse. I watched it again on Monday, the day before we were going to go see it, and that movie is so special, Into the Spider-Verse. It makes me tear up and choke up every time I get to the end, and Miles is having his ending where he says, anyone can wear the mask. You can wear the mask. It just leaves me with so much hope, so much optimism. I get choked up. And this movie did not choke me up yet. You know, I've only seen it once. I'm not sure if I got choked up the first time with Into the Spider-Verse, but every time since then I do. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure how to feel. I did think this movie was very good. I did think it was a very good film. The animation is absolutely beautiful, striking. How many different Earths they go to that have a different style, different sound. The music is very good. But for me, look, if I'm rating Into the Spider-Verse 5 out of 5, this is probably a 4 out of 5, 4.5 out of 5. So it's not like I'm ragging on it. I just want to get that out of the way. But I did have some issues in the sense of, and I think part of that was people were really hyping it up. So I was like, I'm about to see a better movie than Into the Spider-Verse. And after watching them back to back, I think I like Into the Spider-Verse a lot more still. This movie, technically, like I said, is very great. Art is great. The music is great. Where I start to get into why maybe I didn't like it as much as the first one, I lean more to maybe just the general story. Having all of these spider men and women, spider people, who are just following the orders of Miguel O'Hara and at some point seeming very anti-Spider-Man in the sense of, you know, we'll get to the canon events and stuff. I really like how they did that. But it kind of sucked seeing Peter B. Parker and Gwen be on opposing sides of Miles Morales. And I think this is something that's going to play very, very well when we get to Beyond the Spider-Verse next year. I do think when we see that movie and we see the continuation of this story, that it is going to make this movie elevated. I do think it'll elevate this movie as well. And I don't want to harp on it too much because I think other than this 1 year, right? Other than the 1 year where we are waiting, we're always going to have the opportunity to watch these movies back to back and have one long story. So I think part of me left unfulfilled. I know we get closure on Gwen's arc. I know we do. I know we get closure on Gwen's arc. But we didn't get any closure on Miles' arc. And for me, I'm there for Miles in the sense of he's the main character of this trilogy. He was the main character of the first movie. And I was there to see his continuation of his story. And it took a while for us to get to Miles because we got the Gwen opening. And then it took a bit after we get to Miles for him to actually kick off the main plot, which is, I mean, I don't know exactly when it happens in the movie. It feels sort of late that we actually meet Miguel O'Hara. We see him in Gwen's opening, but when we see him coming down the lift, very slowly, it seems like it was very late in the movie to kind of be getting this. But so I guess that was part of my issue with it. I really like the Spot. I think the Spot is a very great villain. Jason Schwartzman plays him very well. He's a riot. He is somebody that you're not taking seriously until you do, right? Until you start seeing the damage he can kind of cause. And I really liked how that was playing in this movie. I think the soundtrack of the licensed songs did not hit me as much as it did the first one. So I know some people are really talking up the music. I know definitely the score is very good, but I'm talking about like the licensed soundtrack of songs. I think I like the first licensed soundtrack better than this film's. But ultimately, I know I'm kind of bouncing around here. It's just my thoughts. I've been wanting to get these thoughts out. I've been, trying to think about what I think of this movie since I've seen it. It is, I wouldn't even say I walked out like disappointed because it is, like I said, it is a good movie. It's a very good movie. But I think because of my expectations of how people were hyping it up, I was probably expecting more or to be walking out feeling elated. I think the cliffhanger does kill it a bit. And I don't mean the movie. I think it killed my vibe a bit. And I had known about the cliffhanger, not what it was, but I know people, we already knew it was called Part 1 before. That's great. I had heard about a cliffhanger and I was like, that's crazy. People are letting that get to them. But it did get to me. And I know that's hypocritical. And that was because now I've seen it, right? I know people are kind of equating it to The Empire Strikes Back a bit, where like Han Solo is left in Carbonite and you're not really sure what to happen with that. And they're comparing that to the Miles ending. And I don't really see it because one, I don't think Han is the main character of that the way Miles is. So it'd be more like if Luke was left with his hanging upside down Bespin. That's what I would say. If you're going to compare it to Empire, it'd be more like having Luke without his hand hanging upside down Bespin, behind, underneath the Cloud City, than the Carbonite thing. Because the way that it leaves with Miles, he's about to go on the attack. He has his electric that he's going to send off on the chain. We have Miles Prowler about to attack him. It ends. Right? To be continued. I think it depends on how they handle this in the next movie. I think I would rather him, if he is going to have a fight with them, have it in this movie and then him realize, or him get out of the building and be like, okay, I'm still stuck on this planet or this Earth 42, then end. I think having our character in actual peril when it ends, hits a little harder in the sense of, oh, I just want to see this now, right? I just want to see this now. I want to see what happens now. It doesn't feel like a satisfying conclusion at that point. Gwen's story does, right? Gwen realizes the canon events can be changed because her dad is going to step down as captain. She also realizes how she's been treating Miles. And she decides she's going to go get her strike team together. And, we get that awesome scene on the roof where she has Spider-Ham, Spider-Man Noir, Indian Spider-Man, Hobie, who else am I missing? Penny, Peter B. Parker. They're all about to go help Miles save his dad. And when you see them all on that roof, I literally said out loud, not in the super loud, but I just whispered to myself in the movie, hell yes, this is what I want. And then it ends, because I do like the cast of the first movie better too. I think that's part of it too. I really like Spider-Ham. I really like Spider-Man Noir. I really wanted to see them again. We didn't. We did get to see Penny again in the facility. I liked seeing her again in that facility. And I really like Peter B. Parker. And the fact that he is now going to be on Miles' side going into the next one is a huge plus. That is a huge plus for Beyond the Spider-Verse for me. Really excited to see how that's going to play out. But ultimately, with that ending, I know I skipped all the way to the end, but it's just something I wanted to get off my chest. I'm really excited to see how this plays out in the next one. There's a great twist in this movie with Earth 42. I called it early, when it says what Earth he's going to. I saw it said Earth 42. I thought it was actually, I started wondering if it was an error, because when it's playing out that he's in the right Earth, right? When you're thinking he's in the right Earth, which is 1610, I was like, is this an error? Because it said he was going to Earth 42, but he's Earth 1610. And I still got by the twist, because I was kind of like, once she started saying who's Spider-Man, I was like, oh, okay. The Earth 42 thing was correct then. I wasn't going crazy. I did see it say Earth 42. But there was a point there where they're trying to sell it, right? They're trying to sell it that it is Earth 1610. And his mom, Rio, says, who's Spider-Man? And you start to click, if you didn't catch Earth 42 as the location when he's getting sent home, you start to click and think, okay, he's somewhere else. So that leaves me too for Beyond the Spider-Verse. Where does that mean, right? The next movie was originally called Across the Spider-Verse Part 2. They've changed the title to Beyond the Spider-Verse. What does that mean to be Beyond the Spider-Verse? We know there's these canon events, and I like the way that they use this, because I'll tell you, my dad has no idea what canon means. He probably understands it a little bit more now due to this, at least on the Spider-Man aspect of, okay, that means this is always supposed to happen. But people that are not as entwined to the nerd culture, that doesn't listen or record podcasts, right? They don't know what that term usually means. So I like that they have the canon events, and that we see, they always lose an uncle. We saw him lose Uncle Aaron in the first one, and they show that. That's really cool. And then knowing that the police captain dies. We know that from other Spider-Man movies where we see Captain Stacy die. For Gwen, it is literally her dad is Captain Stacy. For Miles, we've been told this whole movie his dad is about to make captain. And I know for me this clicked now before Miles says it, but I think for some people it didn't really click of when the captain is going to die close to you, that it means for Miles, his dad's becoming captain. They say it a few times in the movie. And he says it aloud here of, my dad's supposed to be captain in 2 days. And everyone pretty much just gives their condolences of, sorry, bud, it's done. But we now know from Gwen with her dad quitting being captain, that there are ways to stop these canon events, we would think, right? Maybe that's not guaranteed. Maybe Gwen's dad still dies. I don't know. But I think that's kind of what they're hinting at there. So what does that mean for Miles? How are they going to save his dad? When people originally said that there was a cliffhanger in this movie, and we're going through and we hear that part about his dad, I thought maybe the cliffhanger would be something with his dad in peril or dead and he's going to reverse it or something like that. I didn't really think that it meant that it would be, Miles in peril and really with the to be continued there. I know people compare that to Infinity War, but I see it very differently. Infinity War, those characters were dead. They were dusted. They were gone. Thanos won. It was his movie. That was a complete story. Endgame is them going back in time to get those characters and get the Infinity Stones to reverse it. For Miles, it's literally hanging on a thread right now. So it's different than, I think, Infinity War, where I felt like we had resolution of those characters. They were dead. They were dusted. But in this instance, when we talk about what is beyond the Spider-Verse, like I said, we have those canon events. We now also know that Earth 42 has no Spider-Man, because the spider that was supposed to bite whoever on Earth 42 ended up, due to the collider, biting Miles on Earth 1610. This, what we also learn, is what killed Peter as the universe course corrected and now had Miles be the Spider-Man and have his canon events start down their trajectory with losing his uncle and now losing his dad. But when we're talking about the title of Beyond the Spider-Verse, what does it mean? Does it mean, are we technically already beyond the Spider-Verse because Earth 42 doesn't have a Spider-Man? So is it part of the Spider-Verse? When we see Miguel and all of those, when they show Miles the canon events and they have all of this stuff, and they even show Andrew Garfield, they show Tobey Maguire, mourning their uncles, mourning, Captain Stacy. Does it mean that Earth 42 is not part of that because there's no Spider-Man? Or is there another meaning for Beyond the Spider-Verse? Like, because of them stopping these canon events, we are going to end the Spider-Verse, and the next movie is what is beyond. What happens when we defeat these canon events? Does it produce something different? And is Miguel even right? So we see Miles save Captain Singh, which he wasn't supposed to do because that was supposed to be the captain that's close to Indy and Spider-Man. We see that happen. We also start to see the world fall apart in the Mumhanton, right? The Mumbai Hatton in the India storyline. But it kind of looks like the Spot's powers. So is it have anything to do with that? Is it for sure something that happens? We know for Miguel, it was he found another universe where he was happy. He had died, but he kind of reinserted himself into that space and became the father to the daughter that he never had. And he was happy until eventually it stopped some of those canon events and the Earth disappeared. So I would assume that that's correct because the Spot wasn't around then. But it's something to think about. And is he right about everything? No, I don't think he is. We learned from Gwen, her dad can resign. So what does that mean going forward? What is the next step for Beyond the Spider-Verse? Is this Miles that is a Prowler actually evil, or is he just taking up the mantle of Prowler and he's still Miles? Did losing his dad affect him to the point of being bad, or was it the way Uncle Aaron was already raising him? There's a lot of times in this movie when he's late and stuff like that, his dad keeps saying he takes after his uncle. Is that supposed to be a hint to that? What happens when Jefferson is out of the picture? In this universe, Earth 42, Miles becomes the Prowler. So that's something to kind of think about on how this will affect everything going forward. Ultimately, I really liked a lot of the universe hopping. I thought that was cool. Like I said, Spot is really awesome. I liked when he appeared in the Venom world, right? He shows up and he's talking to, I forget what her name is. Let me see if I can find it. Miss Chen. Miss Chen from the Venom films. There you go. There's some really great background Spider-Man in this too. With Spider-Man, Peter Parked Car, the one that is a car. Peter Parked Car is his name instead of Parker. I really dug that. But yeah, so I think also what I really like is when it comes to Peter B. Parker, one of the redeeming qualities of him in this movie was his relationship with Mayday Parker. And if you don't know who Mayday Parker is, she is a comic book character from a different continuity because they don't ever let Spider-Man actually have anything good. Anything good. But she appeared in 1998 in a What If story, What If number 105 in 1998, and I think she's also just been on an alternate Earth. I think she appears in Spider-Geddon. Yes, she does. She appears in Spider-Geddon and Spider-Girls, which is a spin-off of Spider-Geddon. But what I want to say here about Peter Parker is going to be an overall story with Marvel and their editorial. If you don't know what's going on in the Spider-Man comics right now, in Amazing Spider-Man, after the One New Day or Brand New Day storyline, we've talked about it in Spider-Man No Way Home and how he makes everyone forget, who he is and how he ends up not marrying MJ because of that, all that good stuff. That, since then, he's never been happy. Right? They don't let him have MJ. They don't let them get back together. And it's absolutely crushing. It's absolutely crushing because when I was growing up, he was with MJ. He was married. And people accepted that. People accepted that. You can do Ultimate Spider-Man where he is a kid in high school still. I think if Marvel if Marvel could have their way right now, if the 90s hadn't happened, I think Spider-Man would be still in college or high school. I think they would revert him back to that if they could. Which is insane. We've had so much of his life happen since then that is now effectively washed away. And Mayday, which again is in a What If storyline, which is in a whole other universe. This should be the canon Peter Parker storyline in the comics. He was married. They should fix that, have him married, and give him a kid. It's mind-boggling how Marvel, this should be their premiere book, Amazing Spider-Man. And it is instead a laughingstock for a lot of people for being torture porn, pretty much, for Peter Parker. This idea, and this comes from fans too, by the way. This comes from fans because I've seen the Homecoming trilogy where everyone is saying he needs to experience loss because he's too happy and Peter Parker's supposed to be miserable. Enough. Spider-Man his origins come from misery, but he is also allowed to be happy in his storyline. The way Peter B. Parker is happy right now with his daughter having MJ again. That is so frustrating that they don't let him. This should show them that he can still be Spider-Man and have a kid. He can be happy and be Spider-Man. I really wish that they would allow that to happen. When I look down the aisle, across the aisle to DC Comics, which I've been reading a lot lately, Superman has a kid. Superman is still married to Lois Lane. Now, they tried reversing that stuff with New 52. It didn't really catch on. And now we're back to Rebirth and now Dawn of DC, which is just continuing the story that they've already set out in front of us. John Kent is his son. He's married to Lois. Clark, not John. That is a huge character in comics that is able to have a happy, healthy life as well as still be a superhero. And I actually relate Superman and Spider-Man a lot. I do think they're very similar characters when it comes to the core of their beliefs, the core of what they do. They're always going to do the right thing. But Peter gets punished for it all the time. Absolutely awful. So I'm hoping this movie shows them. I'm hoping the movie shows them that this can be good. You can have a good life as Spider-Man without it. Would people read less comics if Peter's happy? I don't think so. They're all going to see this movie where he's happy. Now, of course, the star is Miles, but people really dug Peter B. Parker in the first one. He gets an applause or, reactions when he shows up in this one. Mayday steals the show, too. I love when it's time to go, and this time she pulls the mask down, and she's got the Spider-Man eyes over her. And, he's giving her the little web shooters. I just love that so much. It was so much fun. But so it's that kind of stuff that I'm hoping they can show that going forward of, to editorial. Hey, this version's being very popular over here. He has a kid and they're eating it up. They're loving him. Let's make it official in the comics again. Let's get him back with MJ. Let's get him have a kid. Let's make him happy. There are stories to be done there. I understand it's comics. I understand they always like to reverse stuff and go back to the status quo. But I think you can have a better status quo than what you have for Peter right now. So enough of that rant, I guess here. Another reason I think I don't like this movie as much as the first one is just the villains. I think Oscar Isaac plays a great Miguel O'Hara. And I think I would even throw it in there as a villain, not just... I think Spot's good, but I'm talking about, if we're talking Spider villains, Spider-Man 2099 and Jessica Drew, Spider-Woman. Now, you might think that, okay, she's kind of showing some cracks. I think she'll obviously, I think, go to the good side before Miguel does. But she's very dismissive of Gwen. I didn't really care for that. She's very dismissive of Miles. I didn't really care for that. Miles has such a good moment in this movie when the Spot is shouting out for Spider-Man and is upset, and you have Gwen and I think it was Hobie or Indian Spider-Man. I think it was Indian Spider-Man who are like, no, they mean me. No, they mean me. And then Miles says, I think he means me. And then Spot's like, yes. And what I liked about that is Spot thinks Miles is his nemesis. And Miles actually agrees at the end of the movie when he tells his mom, my nemesis, right, is coming after us, who's not actually his mom. But what I really liked about that moment is it was showing the rest of the Spider crew, I am important. I am the one that this guy is actually after. So you have to let me do this. And they still don't want him to do it. But I just love that he had that moment of vindication, right? Where they're like, stay out of the way, you're going to mess this up. And it's like, no, he's the one, he wants to face me, right? Like I'm the one he wants to face. So I really dug that. But that was what was frustrating, is that I want these spider heroes to be on the same side. And maybe that's why it wasn't as fun for me, right? The first one's fun because they're all teamed up. They're going against a Spider-Man villain in the sense of Kingpin. And that's fun, right? In this, you have the Spot, who's what they're teaming up against, but you also have the antagonist of Miguel O'Hara pushing Miles out of the way. He's really rude to Miles here. He's going to call him, he's the original issue in the timeline, right? Because again, like we said, he wasn't supposed to be bit. So this Miles was never supposed to become Spider-Man. And maybe that's why he's so rude to him, right? They kind of hint to it throughout the movie of, have you even told him how important he is, or have you told him what the issue is with him, type of thing. And Gwen's like, no, I didn't get a chance yet. And then it comes out by Miguel, when he's doing the chase scene on the train and stuff like that. Going back to the Spot, I really love how they tie this in with the first movie. The guy that gets hit in the head with the bagel is the Spot. He's the one that becomes the Spot. His whole beef starts with being hit in the head with a bagel. I think that is absolutely fantastic for the type of character that the Spot is. This is a character that isn't really taking too seriously and becomes such a big menacing villain in this. I think he does. He starts off as a joke, but he becomes menacing by how much beefed up he gets when he gets more powerful by going to Alchemax in every single universe and getting himself souped up. It is really such a interesting plot line for the Spot, who in the comics isn't a super big villain, but I like that they went with somebody like this. Apparently, according to the Wikipedia here, he wasn't originally supposed to be the villain. It came out to it was suggested by Avi Arad, but Phil Lord and Christopher Miller dismissed it. But after they talked about more of their powers, they made him the antagonist. So I wonder what the story would have been like without that, because his holes are what gets him to the multiverse, which is what makes the issue for Miguel. I think this was always going to be the issue with 2099. Miguel O'Hara was going to be about the multiverse. So maybe they would have just kept it that it was still fallout from the Kingpin stuff, which we did know was still causing issues, but I think that may have been the whole story instead of the Spot. But I think the Spot worked really, really well. I loved him so much. I like when he goes to the Lego world as well. That was a really cool scene. But yeah, that was really great. Karan Soni, who is the cab driver in Deadpool, is the one that voices Spider-Man India, which is his name is Pavatir Prabhakar. I probably messed that up. I'm sorry. And yeah, the place is called Mumhattan, which is a portmanteau of Mumbai and Manhattan. I thought he was cool. I thought Hobie, which is Hobart Brown, Spider-Punk, he is a cool storyline, cool character. I like how he is talking about taking down the Authority, but he's part of the Spider-Man Authority. But he does quit. He does peace out when he sees how they're treating Miles. It's very admirable. He's actually smart enough. He's able to create the band that makes them not glitch and be able to transport them to other dimensions that he gives to Gwen at the end, which allows Gwen to get her spider team together, which is her band, right? The band we see at the beginning, she wasn't fitting into. Now this is her band that she does fit into. And again, that wraps up the Gwen story pretty handily. Anything else that I want to cover before we wrap it up? Anyway, just some Spider-Man that we see in here. We see 1967 animated series Spider-Man. We see the PS4 Spider-Man. We see the live action Spider-Man. We see Aaron Davis Prowler, which is played by Donald Glover in live action. If you didn't get that, he is originally also in Homecoming. He plays Aaron Davis, and he mentions how he has a nephew in Brooklyn. That's all really, or Queens, I guess, at that point. But that's a really great callback to that. We don't know if it's the MCU Prowler, but it's at least played by the same actor. So that was cool. Just so many awesome Spider-Man. We see the Spectacular Spider-Man 2008-2009 cartoon. There's footage from the game of Marvel's Spider-Man. Not only does the character appear, but Genki is playing the Spider-Man game in his dorm. That's really fun. He also has a Hingmin Sun Tottenham poster on it as well, which I appreciated. We have Spider-Bite. Yes, we have Spider-Bite. She's the one that is, putting together the machine. Which is where she's a Spider-Woman from her virtual reality. She's just like sitting on her couch. We have Ben Reilly as the Scarlet Spider, played by Andy Samberg. That was a really fun a couple scenes that he appears into. Spider UK shows up in here at some point. I mean, there is a lot of really fun Spider-Men that appear in this. Spider people that appear in the story. So many that I can't even say. That's going to be what's fun about pausing it and looking. But I think the main core Spider people, my favorites were Spider-Man India and Hobie. Because again, I'm not really vibing with Jessica Drew and Miguel O'Hara in the sense of that they're not great people. So I don't consider them part of the Spider team or anything like that. But her Spider team consists of, Peter B, Mayday, Spider-Man India, Hobie, Margot, Spider-Man Noir, Penny Parker, and Spider-Ham. But yeah, I think that's about it. I don't have too much more. Margot being Spider-Bite. I don't have too much more to talk about my thoughts of it. Overall, like I said, really enjoyed it. I don't want people to think I'm really down on it. It was just kind of the vibe of, I guess, the hype and stuff. I want to be able to see it again, but I think I might have to wait till home video because I'm about to start my coverage of The Flash over on Elseworlds, which if you're part of this feed, you will get that episode, but we also have a separate feed just for DC content on Elseworlds. But yeah, we're going to be starting The Flash coverage next week, and then I'm going to see that again on Saturday, I think, as well. So I'm going to be seeing that twice. So I don't know if I'll be able to fit in another showing of Across the Spider-Verse due to a lot of busy stuff going on in my life. I would have loved to see it again this weekend, but I got other plans. But overall, I think, again, once we have the third one, Beyond the Spider-Verse, and you're able to watch all three of these in a row, I think it's going to be a very flowing story. And I'm thinking Beyond the Spider-Verse is going to blow this one out of the water. If they're doing, they're making them at the same time. So I do think that the animation will be similar. It may not be a huge upgrade that way. But I think story-wise of wrapping it up, what happens to Jefferson? How do they reverse this? What happens going forward? I think it's going to be a very satisfying ending to the trilogy. But that's all I'll really say. If you want to give us a follow follow the show notes. All of those links are in there because they're all different across every different social media platform. But thank you for taking the time to listen to my raw thoughts of Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Have a great rest of your week. We'll catch you next time for Secret Invasion.